You're watching Reality Check, This Week in Rewind. Welcome to Reality Check, This Week in Rewind. I'm your host, Quinnie B. This was a very light week for reality TV. I would say our pattern has gotten a little mixed up because now we've had 2 shows debut on a Wednesday. There also was no T.I. and Tiny Friends and Family Hustle this week, and surprisingly, I actually missed that show. Braxton Family Values is no longer on air, but we also gained Grown Up Hip Hop Atlanta. So there's just been a little bit of shift, but I don't think it's anything that we can't handle, right? So let's go ahead and hit the social media portion. It's been super light on the social media front, with the exception of a very small interview that Portia Williams did recently. They were asking, how was she and Dennis McKinley? Did they break up? She's not wearing her engagement ring anymore. And she gave very PC answers. As we know, they're supposed to be filming or gearing up to film. I think that she's trying to keep it at bay for the storyline. But then a statement in the interview states that she prides herself on being very transparent on the show. So that's what makes me think that she's trying to keep everything close to the vest for the show. However, she made some very vague statements about whether or not she and Dennis makes it. He's given her her greatest gift, which is Pilar Janae. And she's always going to have love for him, care for him, and love him as the father of her child. And to me, those are things that people say when they're either going through a rough time or the relationship has already run its course. Either way, I really don't think we have to worry about Portia because she's a boss and she handles her own. In other relationship news, since we've been apart, we know that Tami Roman has not only gotten married, but been married for a year. Congratulations, Tami. Congratulations, Reggie. I know that this was just a major hurdle for the two of you. So happy that she was able to come around. And that covers the social media portion for this week. So let's go ahead and hop into the recap. We're going to open this week with Little Women Atlanta, which we already know is one of my favorite shows. This week, to me, is super special because we get to see a wedding. We get to see all the drama. We get to see them work on their careers, their music. We get to see them argue with their boyfriends, some of that drama, but we never actually get to see a wedding or something just 110% positive. I was excited about this episode in particular because of the wedding. Now, it is business as usual because the entire cast is in Texas for this major event. That means that Juicy is still meeting with the Cheeks and needs to talk to Emily and Bree about Bree's solo career, which we already know Bree has still not told Emily about. But let's slow down. Back to the beginning. As we know, Amanda is preparing for now her solo wedding, which I think is okay because that means that all of the spotlight is on her. And that color scheme they had, that forward screen and that red, that Christmas color scheme is now out of the window. This episode, it's really a countdown to the wedding. So they are finalizing all of the last minute details. They go and get their nails done. They go to the cake tasting, which they hold off until they come to Texas for that because Amanda wanted her mom to be a part of it. And I think that is so sweet. One thing that is definitely clear during this episode is how close the twins are to their parents and how much their parents love them and the sacrifices that they made and just working hard to make sure that they didn't feel small. And I think that that is so sweet. It's so heart-touching. Like, beyond the beauty of the wedding, the love and the relationship that they have with their parents just touched me in so many ways. While Bree's in Texas, she decides to accompany Emily to a doctor's appointment. And this doctor's appointment is really important because they get to find out whether or not Emily's baby is going to be a normal person or a little person. What I didn't like is that Emily is still just very mean, just kind of throwing shots at Bree because Bree has a normal sized baby or has had one. Let Emily tell it, she doesn't want a normal sized baby anyway. Of course, this is after we find out that her baby isn't quote unquote normal or average, I guess, for lack of a better term. And it still just kind of shows that even though Emily has these soft sides to her, that instead of just being vulnerable and being honest, she has a tendency to lash out at the people that love her most. And it seems like Bree is just her punching bag. While Bree is here accompanying her to this doctor's appointment, I couldn't help but manage to ask, like, where's the dad? Why doesn't he want to accompany you to this? Unless this is for filming, I really don't understand. They do divulge that Emily has had a rough past as far as pregnancy and history of conceiving. And so this really is just a blessing for her overall. And so congratulations, Emily. While we're talking about the Cheeks, let's talk about how Juicy goes ahead and outs Bree. Juicy meets with the Cheeks to talk to them about their future, to check on Emily and the baby, but more importantly, to go ahead and do what Bree does not have the courage to do. And that is spill the beans on this solo project. Emily is taken aback, immediately offended, and once again showing that insecurity, feeling as though she's going to be left behind. And it doesn't help that Bree's debut song is titled Moving On or something to that effect, because Emily's like, moving on from what? And they are able to squash this while they're over at Emily's house and she's helping her prep for the new baby, because they're able to have an in-depth conversation. But if Emily were more warm, if she was a nicer person, I think that Bree would be more forthcoming with these things and wouldn't be so apprehensive about sharing this with her. I mean, after all, they are supposed to be partners. It's time for the rehearsal dinner, and I want to go ahead and give Andrea all of the props, because not only are you having to attend and support your sister at a wedding that was supposed to be your wedding, you are also having to sit here and be grilled by your friends about, where's Chris? Are you guys going to kiss and make up? Have you spoken to him? All of these questions that I'm sure she has been asking herself and that she hasn't even been able to navigate. You know, they just want to jump on her at what is already probably one of her lowest moments. She handles it like a pro. I mean, you see her break a little bit. Her voice gets a little shaky. You know, she tears up a little bit. And once again, there's that twin bond where Amanda sees this happening and stops everything that she's doing. And she goes out there to talk to her sister and support her sister. But I know that it still just has to be rough. While I know that Juicy, Money, and Minnie all had the best intentions asking about Chris and their future, I just can't help but think that this was not the time. I don't think it was appropriate. And it also kind of took the shine off of what you were there for. It's the day of the wedding, and I'll just go ahead and fast forward to the end and say this. This wedding is beautiful. The sun is right. You know, the weather seems to be amazing. The ladies look beautiful in their dresses, and it is just covered in love. You can see the love on screen. One thing that is super touching is that Andrea is concerned about her relationship with her sister, which she definitely has nothing to worry about. One, you know, you're twins. And two, this bond and this love that you guys have for each other is unshakable. It would never be broken by any person. But I think it just shows the human side and just the transition that they're in their lives. The only thing I wish they had had at the wedding was someone to hold the doors for Amanda and her father as they walked out, because he had to open the doors for them and then kind of hold the door open for her. And I think it just kind of stole their moment a little bit. But overall, the wedding was beautiful. So 2 questions left from this episode is, were the ladies out of line for questioning Andrea at the rehearsal dinner about Chris and their status? And was Juicy out of line for outing Bree? I mean, it makes for good TV, but that just could have gone really left. On to Growing Up Hip Hop. Now, welcome back, Growing Up Hip Hop, because it feels like they've been gone for ages. We had that 3-part special of Tami and Waka, which I think was kind of their way of introducing them into this season. But it's hard to even remember what happened last season on Growing Up Hip Hop. But we make sure that we get that recap footage so that we are able to pick right up where we left off. We're not even 30 minutes into this episode, and we open with Kiyomi's 911 call, the audio of the call. And she says that she's standing outside of her boyfriend's house and that he's been hitting her in places, and that he says that no one will believe her. Now, when I hear hitting her in places, I'm thinking places that aren't visible to the eye, so nothing up here, nothing facial, but things that are below the waist, areas that are just going to be covered unless you see her, in her morning glory. The whole no one will believe you, it's not painting Bao in a great light. And even when we move on to the next scene where Tami and Waka are hosting an event to show footage of their wedding for people that were in it. And I guess for those that couldn't make it. And I guess for those that didn't watch the special. Bow Wow is still the topic of discussion, and rightfully so, because whenever a man puts his hands on a woman, especially a public figure, and the audio is as bad as what we heard, I mean, it shakes a community to its core. This episode really surrounds Bow Wow and Kiyomi and the mounting evidence against him, and it's forcing kind of the cast to take sides. During this event where they are showing footage of the wedding, they discuss Waka's career and Tami's career because Tami is launching her music career. Waka says that he's retired, but for Tami, that means that he wouldn't be touring. Now, several retired artists tour and perform old material. So I don't think that her definition of retired is really accurate, but I think that she really just wants her husband home. And she also wants to be the center of his attention. She wants to be his primary focus. Not long after we are shown this Waka and Tami event, a second 911 call is released, and it is definitely just not looking good for Bow at all. It's painting him in an even worse light. As we've seen in the trailer for this season, Andrea Kelly is now on Growing Up Hip Hop. While I'm not even sure why she's on the show, what I don't like about her intro and a lot of her confessionals and just a lot of what her storyline is, it's about what R. Kelly has done and how what he's done has impacted her and her children and how she's recovering. And not saying that that's not a major part of who she is. However, you've already done a special on Lifetime about that. You've also given contradicting statements. 1 second you're supporting R. Kelly, the next second you're not. And so I would just much rather, if she's going to be a part of this cast, that it's genuinely focused on maybe her rebuilding her life without so much talk about R. Kelly. They showed so much footage and it was so much about what Robert had done to her that I really just wanted to fast forward through the show. Another question that I had is that Deb seems to be the thread to bring a lot of these people together. It's almost as if she's the fairy godmother. Andrea can't even talk to Deb without crying about, what she's done for her and her kids and her family. And while it's very sweet, I had never known this. I think that had Andrea never been on the show, we would have never known how close they were. They also talk about this Bow Wow and Kiyomi situation. And what I like about Deb is that she is who she is. Her opinion is what it is, and she does not change. She does not care. She and Andrea are kind of sharing the same point of view, is that, one, it's never okay for a man to put his hands on a woman. And also, this is just not a good look for him, and this should be a wake-up call that he's acted out on the show before. Everyone knows that he has these anger issues, these temper tantrums, and when that is your known history, it is hard for people to even see the good in you or believe that you're not even capable of something like this. Bow Wow's mom comes over to his apartment to talk about what happened. She's the person that bailed him out, and she just wants to understand, how did we get here? Because everyone at the close of the last season was telling him to leave her alone, that they just weren't good for each other. They did not bring out the best in one another. While I agree, the how did we get here? How did we not see it coming? The how did we get here is no longer the question, because we're here now. The question is, how did he get these bites on his rib? If you didn't put your hands on her, then how did she even get down here to be able to bite you? I feel like he's on the show trying to make a point, trying to show that he's innocent and she didn't have any scratches on her face. Look at my face. She attacked me. However, where his injuries are really strengthen the case for self-defense. And now that I think about it, we actually haven't heard anything about this case. I don't recall hearing anything about it. And so I'm thinking he may have actually settled out of court. Nevertheless, his mom is definitely the only person that's in his corner for sure. Everyone else is just disappointed in him and was trying to warn him and just really wanted to protect him. So when we talk about protecting Bow Wow, we can go ahead and talk about how JD just doesn't want to be involved in this at all. When he and Brat meet at the studio, JD is just like, well, he and we talked about this. He knew better than this. I don't really want to be a part of it. And honestly, who can blame him? Because Bao has had a history of dating a particular type of woman. Not saying that Kiyomi is that type of woman, but he loves video vixens and the girls that are out for attention, aspiring artists, models, rappers, whatever the case may be. With that, sometimes comes drama. Only thing that I can think is that it's hard for two people in the industry to be together because of egos. Kiyomi was already kind of in the process of making a name for herself, being on Wild 'N Out and I guess rapping. I can't imagine what those arguments are like because somebody like Bow Wow definitely has a Napoleon complex. We attempts to further integrate Andrea Kelly into the show by having her teach a dance class to Deb Antony and Tami Rivera. Tami is actually preparing for her video for her song Sex With You. And so she wants to find her sexy. She's not feeling sexy, which I find hard to believe because her Instagram is covered in sexy, risque photos of her. So I'm just not buying that. But watching Deb dance is entertaining. Watching these ladies bond is entertaining. Deb also mentions that she wants to do an artist boot camp. And so she thinks Andrea Kelly would be a great addition as far as the choreography is concerned and just for artist development. And I couldn't agree more. Here is the meat of this episode. Brat meets with Bao at the studio. And of course, they're going to discuss this Kiyomi situation. Brat is driving it home for him about where he went wrong, what his accountability was. And he is just unwilling to take accountability. Well, she did this too. She's done things too. She has a temper. I didn't do this on my own. It is deflection, deflection, deflection to the point where Brat just flat out says, I'm not worried about her. This bitch ain't got nothing to lose. She doesn't have a career. I still really don't even think that registers for him what she means. I don't even think that it hits home. It's almost as if everybody cares more about Bow Wow, his career, his image, than he does. He's not understanding the severity of the situation. And frankly, I don't think his mom is either. Speaking of his mom, she goes out to lunch with Deb Antony and she talks to Angela Simmons, which I'm like, girl, so is Angela the only hot girl on this entire growing up hip hop franchise? The LA one, New York one, I think, because there was a New York one, and this Atlanta one. Is she the only girl that people are allowed to desire? Because I know that Romeo and Bow Wow aren't really having this whole Angela Simmons back and forth thing. Like, I know that this can't be real. She talks to Angela Simmons and is kind of, well, are you single? Blah, blah, blah. Yes, we need to link up because, of course, they've remained close even after she and Bao broke up, which is cute. But, girl, you got bigger fish to fry. Your son got a whole battery, assault, domestic violence, all of that. Charges on him. You don't need to be worried about hooking him up with somebody else. You need to be worried about keeping him out of jail. So when Deb arrives, and Teresa and Deb talk about it, Deb just kind of cut straight to the point because Teresa's just he's my son and I believe my son and I support my son. While that's all great, I expect you to support your son. It's also time to call a spade a spade. Deb wastes no time pulling her card and saying, girl, it's not okay what he did. And do you really believe that? How did he get the bite on his ribs? This isn't making sense. Deb is asking all of these probing questions, and Teresa really doesn't have an answer for them because she's just vacant, aloof, not there. At the close of this episode, this elevator footage is released where he is being aggressive with Kiyomi, and you can see her just kind of standing there. She's clearly upset. Now, I'm not going to say that she's not upset. She's clearly upset. However, she is not the aggressor in this footage. He's in her face or, trying to be in her face because she's taller than him, and he's a little Napoleon. So he's trying to be in her face and she's just like, you can see she's kind of like, get off me. Like, let's just leave this alone. And he snatches her hand. And so we get to see Deb's reaction to the footage. And it's almost as if he's just digging a deeper hole for himself. It's crazy. Moving on to Real Housewives of Potomac. This episode is all about Monique and her rainbow baby. And she explains what a rainbow baby is, which is a baby that is actually being carried to term after the loss of another baby. It's a celebratory moment. What I like about Monique's event is that she didn't make it all about her. Yes, let's celebrate my rainbow baby, but let's also talk and celebrate other women that maybe are trying to conceive and experiencing difficulty. Let's share our individual experiences, because I know that I'm not the first, nor will I be the last woman to have this experience. 2 cast members that won't be attending this event are Giselle and Robin. Giselle's daughter got a fever and sick, so Giselle's on mommy duty. And Robin's also on mommy duty because her son had a baseball game. Completely understand. However, the people that do attend, there's still enough drama to go around. For example, Monique's mother-in-law attends this event. This is actually their first time seeing each other since they fell out from her calling her a heifer. Woo! Chris looks just like his mom. It's literally like him with the wig on. The resemblance is uncanny. Ashley and Michael are in attendance, as well as the Grand Dame and Ray. And while Karen isn't really featuring Ashley, I think that this event kind of brings them together. Well, I don't think. It definitely does bring them together. We see later on in the episode that they have this one-on-one experience at this like Himalayan sea salt room thing that they've become popular now. It's supposed to like clear your aura and open up your senses or something like that. And so because these ladies have both experienced a tremendous loss, with Karen losing her parents months apart from each other and Ashley having a miscarriage, and so they're able to kind of come together and mend their friendship out of grief, or at least that's what they're trying to do. Candace and Chris arrive, but they're late, and Candace is making it very hard to be likable. It's almost as if she has this vendetta against Ashley. Candace comes in, and of course she's missed some of the most important parts of the event. However, when Ashley is sharing her experience and her loss, which is clearly hard for she and Michael. As a person who did not think that Michael wanted to have a baby with Ashley, watching that changed my mind. He was so emotional. His eyes were red. He got up from the table. He was crying. So clearly he has really grown to want to start a family with Ashley. And maybe their love is genuine. I mean, and more power to her, because the man is 60 and it couldn't be me. I'm going to step away from judging that. It's clear that that's something that they wanted. Thankfully, they've been able to conceive and things are working. But at this time, it's sad to see the hurt that they're experiencing as a unit. But Candace can't even come out of her criticism and her better than thou attitude to even empathize with Ashley. It's painting Candace in a very nasty light. I don't like it. Another thing that happens at this event is Monique's mother-in-law apologizes to her. And while I think that this is nice, I think that her mother-in-law felt like this was all that she needed to do. And Monique is very clear about that was a great first step, but we still have things to address and more hurdles to get over. Giselle's mom comes to visit, and Giselle loves it when her mom's in town. I was wondering if her parents were divorced, and they are. Clearly, it was not on great terms, because when Giselle starts talking about her father's 80th birthday party, mom is not interested. Don't ruin my mood. I don't want to talk about it. Giselle also discusses with her mom wanting to buy a rehab property because she wants, I guess, a new start. Maybe this is the house that she got in her divorce from Jamal Bryant. And so Giselle just wants to show her girls what it's like to be a boss and be able to go and buy things on your own and do your own thing. Which, for Bravo, this is a perfect segue into Robin and Robin's mom, their rehab attempt. They are trying to get into the buy, flip, sell business as far as real estate. And this first property has kind of been an uphill battle for them. Their plan, I believe, was to have the house rehabbed and sold within 3 months. They are now 10 months on the books. The house still has about a month or so in construction until it's ready. So they are just losing. I think the max that Bravo showed that they could make when they actually sell the house in order to actually sell it and remain competitive on the market, it would be about 50 grand. So just imagine what that profit would have been had they actually been able to stick to their timeline. It probably would have been about 3 or 4 times the profit that they're expected to make now. So it's the day after the rainbow party, and Monique, Chris, his mom, just the family in general, they're sitting down and they're talking about the state of the family and how can they come together? How can they repair things? Because at the end of the day, family is all you have, and you want these children to grow up in love, and you want them to know their grandparents. These are things that are important when it's all said and done. Chris's mom really does subscribe to that old school mentality of, I can say what I want to say, and I don't care if it offends you. I, as your elder, I'm right. And even if your feelings are hurt, you have to get over it. My mom and I, we talk about this all the time. Not only is it a different generation and the times are different, I would just want her to think about how she felt maybe when her mother or someone hurt her feelings. At some point during her upbringing, I'm sure that these mothers, these now mothers and grandmothers have said, when I become a mom, I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z to my kids. But somehow we turn around and we repeat that cycle. And Chris's mom is an example of that. She's very old school in her thought processes. And so she should be able to say whatever she wants to Monique and Chris, and they should be able to get over it and just move past it and understand that she doesn't mean anything by it. And Chris and Monique really do shut that down. And I admire the way that Chris backs his wife. They are definitely a unit. They are just a force to be reckoned with. As long as Chris stands behind and backs Monique, his mom will definitely fall in line because she wants to have that relationship with her son. She's going to want to be there. Smaller scenes in this episode include Ashley and Michael going to see an acupuncturist. Maybe it worked, maybe it didn't. Doesn't matter at this point. She's conceived. Candace and Giselle meet up at Chris's restaurant for lunch. While nothing of value really comes from this conversation, there is a part where Candace shares that Monique said that Katie looked like Amistad. And remember, on the last episode, I believe it was, I was saying that Katie looked really rough and that I wasn't going to repeat Monique's joke. But here it is coming to bite her in the ass an episode later. And Candace even admits that she should have shut up. I think that Candace thought that she was just having friendly girl chat with Giselle, and Giselle is immediately offended by what Monique said. And this is definitely like a little piece of cheese that's gonna infiltrate this whole Giselle and Monique reconciliation. It's definitely gonna come up later on this season. I really wish that it wouldn't, because I don't think that Monique meant anything bad by it. I think it was just maybe a bad joke. I think it may have just been a bad joke. Candace admits that she probably should have kept her mouth shut. This episode closes with Karen and Ashley, like I said, going to the salt room. The lady that is taking them into the room, she's an intuitive, she's a psychic, she's this. She tells Karen that her dad says she can't be this strong for forever. And Karen just breaks down. While maybe it's because of the editing, the intuitive doesn't feel genuine or real intuitive, Ashley embraces this opportunity to rebuild her relationship with Karen. On to Love and Hip Hop Atlanta. There are 3 major scenes during this episode, which is when the guys go and meet up at the park. Shekinah goes up to Salon Echelon, and when Jasmine and Rashida meet up to talk about this communication between her and Kurt. So let's just go ahead and start from the beginning. Scrappy and Bambi, Mimi and Stevie, Rashida and Kurt, they all take the kids to kind of like a Sky Zone trampoline park type location. And what they're doing is they are filling in Stevie on what happened while they were in Trinidad. But they also talk about how they should tackle this Jasmine situation, because Rashida is still just not comfortable with Kirk communicating with Jasmine. And I understand you may be feeling insecure about that because of what happened and how things came to be. However, if Kirk wants to cheat, then that's just what he's going to do. It could be Jasmine. It could be Jasmine's best friend. It could be some girl that she's never met. If a man is going to cheat, then that's just what he's going to do. So there's no point in trying to put all these parameters on it. I mean, okay, what do you want him to do? Start a group text and tell her to only reply to him within the chat? I mean, I really think that it is unfair to continue to put Kelsey in the middle of this, because that's the only person that's being punished. This is where the idea that Rashida and Jasmine need to meet up is sparked. It's also hinted in this scene that Mimi's girlfriend Ty and Stevie are having some type of conflict, and it is also impacting Mimi and Ty's relationship. We also get a major preview to that for the next episode. Jock and Kendra are at Shekinah's hair salon because Kendra just cannot stand Sharonda, I believe is her name. She is Jock's partner or co-owner in this hair salon. He is complaining to Shekinah about the turnover rate with employees, and just basically he is not seeing a return on his investment. It's unfortunate because, to be honest, there are not many good hair salons in Atlanta, and when you find one and you find a good hairstylist, women travel far and wide to get their hair done. I was traveling an hour. I live in Sandy Springs. My hair salon was in College Park, the Riverdale area, and I was driving down there faithfully to get my hair done. Women will travel far and wide to get their hair done. Kendra cites that she just doesn't like Sharonda, that she has a nasty attitude, and that she is the reason why stylists are leaving and why they can't keep a steady clientele in there. And being that Shekinah has been in the hair business for so long, and because Shekinah and Jock are so close, he just asks her, hey, can you do me a favor? Can you pop into the shop and give me your professional opinion on what things we can improve upon? Who do you think is the issue? Because I'm ready to make my money back. I think because this salon's been open for maybe 2 years. Shekinah gladly takes up this responsibility. As we see, things quickly go south. Karlie, Mimi, and Sierra are at Karlie's house. Now, Mimi and Sierra are helping Karlie study for this sex ed course or something that she's taking to be this sex therapist, or really can't recall what the title is, but I guess Karlie's really taking this seriously. But while they're studying, they are talking about relationships. They're also talking about Pooh. They're talking about Trinidad. As girls do, it's also a time for girl chat. Karlie kind of implies that Mo is a little possessive, and Mimi and Sierra feel as if this 2 a.m. curfew is just ridiculous. And while I understand that they are in the entertainment industry and they are going to do club appearances, I don't really think a 2 a.m. curfew is ridiculous. I don't even know if I want to call it a curfew, but maybe it's more so just a request, as she's, I guess, now a married woman or preparing to be a married woman. And so he just feels as though 2 a.m. is a respectful time. They've said that this is possessive. They recommend that Karlie and Mo go speak to, who else? Dr. Jeff, because they only have 2 counselors on reality TV at this point. And so we also kind of get to see that come into fruition later on in the episode. Let me also mention that Karlie says that she's going to take this lie detector test for this whole shitty sheets and threesome situation with Pooh. As I've already said, anyone can be taught to fudge or bypass a lie detector test. And really, who cares at this point? Like, this is just already aired out everybody's dirty laundry. Literally. Can we just move on? Before Shekinah can even make it over to Salon Echelon, Jock pops in to kind of see what's going on. When I tell you the sitting area is packed, okay, you have women just waiting, and they've been waiting. And Jock goes, well, how long y'all been waiting? And this girl's like, I've been waiting a little longer than I anticipated. And Sharon is just like, don't talk to my clients. Don't be coming in here starting no mess. Very nasty and unpleasant, and I wouldn't want her hands in my head. Actually, one of the young ladies just gets up and walks out. It just kind of further proves why Jock is not going to see a return on his investment when it comes to this hair salon. A small scene during this episode is when BK shows up at Sierra's townhouse uninvited. I am just not sold on this townhouse not having a gate and her not being able to get her code changed or something, because it's an all brick townhouse. So she spent a pretty penny on it. And I'm just very confused as to how he even made it through to get to her door. Nevertheless, he shows up at her door, and because she is not returning his sentiments, his affections of wanting to get back together, it now becomes a screaming match of who can call each other trash and more derogatory names more. Sierra just gets fed up and like mushes him. VH1's people come in, security, they come in, they separate them really quickly. But it really just shows, for a lack of a better term, for that early 90s reference, how much of a scrub BK is. Because it shows that maybe you didn't really love her. You don't say hurtful things like that. You don't react like that to someone that you're trying to reconcile with. And could not wait to call her a whore and all of these other things. She's really justified in wanting to move on. It's very much like, well, thank you, next. Thank you for showing me what I'm not missing out on. The guys go on this outdoor outing, right, to bond and just catch up on things because scrap is finally out. Stevie coordinated this. So while this is happening, so many other things are happening at the same time. Shekinah showing up at Salon Echelon to give her analysis, and Rashida is meeting with Jasmine to discuss the future of how they would like to communicate as it pertains to canon. When Shekinah shows up to Salon Echelon, she is greeted with the same nasty demeanor from Sharonda, as well as several people waiting. It's just showing me that maybe Sharonda's only fit to be a stylist. Maybe she should just be paying booth rent because she's not a pleasant person. She doesn't have anyone at the front desk. She kind of asks, how can I help? Well, if you want to help, you can get your ass over there and get to answering the phone and taking appointments. Very nasty. Shekinah's like, where are your towels? Because this girl just wants a wash and blow. I can do that. And she won't talk to her. And Shekinah's like, I'll figure it out. When the dust settles from the day, from this just very tumultuous day, Sharonda divulges that for Jock to have a woman, aka Kendra, he's doing things with other stylists that are not appropriate. And that is why she can't keep anyone in the salon. She's implying that maybe he's sleeping with them or showering them with too much attention. When they come back into the salon, they feel as though they don't have to listen to her because maybe they can just call Jock and he's just going to fix it and make it all go away. I'll be honest, I'm not sure about how much I believe that. And it's not because Jock just has this track record of being the most faithful person. But I think that Jock has enough sense to not ruin his business endeavors. And I actually think he's possibly even really serious about Kendra. And so why would you risk that on a stylist at your hair salon, at your place of business? Ironically, when this information is kind of shared with Stevie J about what's going on or with the guys while they're at this outdoor trip, Stevie is talking about you can't dip the stick where you work or something to that effect. And it's just ironic because weren't you sleeping with Estelita, Jocelyn, everybody that you've worked with, you've tried to lay the pipe down on. So clearly you would be experienced in not doing that. But we also know that you're clearly not taking your own advice. Let's fast forward to Rashida and Jasmine meeting up to talk. They meet at what is now Frost's Lounge. Jasmine acknowledges that she does have some immature sides, that yes, she was kind of barking at Rashida on social media. She's sensitive, but she also admits that she felt as though Rashida was attacking her motherhood because of the comment about her son still being in diapers at 2. And Rashida says, well, I was just making an observation because your son was over my house. And so I needed to know what type of care he would be requiring. While I think that that's true, like, let's just be real, Rashida. It was also kind of a dig at her motherhood. Like, let's just call a spade a spade. Jasmine does make a good point about Kirk using Rashida as the scapegoat. And I think that that's what happens when you don't have these open lines of communication, when you don't have this forum where the ladies are able to speak directly. Because Kirk can easily say, well, I mean, I wasn't really concerned about that, but Rashida said that. Rashida feels this way. Maybe that seed will make Rashida want to expedite this whole family communication thing. She does say that for the record, or for the time being, please do not contact my husband directly. Let's continue to communicate through Kelsey until I'm comfortable otherwise. This episode closes out with Karlie and Mo going to Dr. Jeff for a session. You know, either Karlie is a great actress or Arkansas Mo is very emotionally, mentally, verbally, and physically abusive. She is visibly shaken and borderline inaudible when she talks about what happens when she misses her curfew. He storms out. Although Dr. Jeff is saying, you stayed and so you're here and you're ready to do your work. I think that Arkansas Mo is also just concerned with his image and with his reputation being slandered, because Karlie's in there damn near hyperventilating and she's crying and you don't know what I go through. And so either she's a great actress or he's really beating that ass at home. And if he is, then why do you want to be with someone like that anyway? I mean, now, as I reported a few weeks ago, she's already posted the rings on Instagram and saying that this is a forever thing, and I do. So the implication is that they are legally married at this time. I would just hope that at Karlie's age and with her experience that she wouldn't tolerate anything like this. Let's move on to the season premiere of Basketball Wives. This episode is kind of bittersweet. It has its high moments and then it has its low moments, because it wouldn't be Basketball Wives without a little bit of drama. So of course these ladies have been gone for almost a year. We are assuming that maybe Cece and Kristen have made up. Maybe the family's back together. Maybe Jennifer's reached out to Evelyn, because so much time has passed. VH1 does a great job of facilitating the conversations so that we know where the ladies stand with one another. Jennifer has not spoken to anyone, but she did send a Instagram message to Shawnee when she saw that Sharif had to have open heart surgery. Cece and Kristen have not made up, and I guess Byron has seen last season of Basketball Wives. It's not Cece that's not ready to make up with Kristen. It's Byron that feels as though Kristen has now disrespected him, and they need to have a one-on-one conversation before they can move forward. So much so that they have not only not spoken since last season, but he doesn't even want her at the wedding. So you talk about family drama and rifts. Let's back up and let's start from the beginning. The season opens with Sharif and Shawnee sharing that he had like an artery or a stem that just grew the wrong way, and he had been going his entire life with that. And when they went in for a checkup, it was found, and so he has to have open heart surgery. Naturally, she's worried. That's her baby. Who thinks that someone so young would have to experience such a major surgery? They cut to Evelyn, who mentions that she's experiencing kind of a chronic joint pain while moving into her new home. This is her new beginning. She's excited, but she just wants to feel like herself. She's at the point where she can't work out anymore. Then we cut to the newlyweds, Tami and Reggie, who are shopping for scuba gear. They had recently gone on vacation, or I would say maybe even a honeymoon, and they watched everyone else enjoy the water, swim, and actually be able to participate in certain activities. She has a goal set that the next time they go visit a body of water, they will be prepared and trained to scuba dive. Tami divulges that she's working on 3 to 4 shows as well as a shoe line. Now, the shady person in me immediately thought of Evelyn when she did that whole mocking Tami's walk, but I can't wait to see this shoe line. I encourage all girl bosses. Let's get these coins, girl. In this scene, Tami mentions that she and Reggie have a double date with Jackie and Doug Christie. She already knows that Jackie is going to be in their business about how they have to get married, because at this point, no one knows that they're married. Tami even says in her confessional, I don't even wear a ring because I don't want these girls in my business. And I understand. To have access to that part of her is a privilege. I think that Reggie is her piece. Although this show brings the drama and this is a check, she doesn't want to bring that home. She's really just trying to protect her union. Who can blame her? I've already kind of covered the Cece and Byron thing, but they cut to Cece and Byron and them talking about the engagement, his offense to what Kristen has said, and how he wants to ask his son to be his best man, but he doesn't want Kristen to be there, which clearly, as I've already discussed when we talk about men backing up their women like Chris backs up Monique, that's just not going to fly. I don't care if you're my dad or whomever, you're not going to uninvite my wife from your wedding and think that I'm going to be there, or you're not going to skip her in general and think that I'm going to be there. And so they really do need to get this resolved. They then cut to Shawnee, and it's a week post-surgery for Sharif, and he is up and walking. He's playing his video game. It's literally like nothing has ever happened. You wouldn't think that he's had surgery with his behavior. But Shawnee mentions wanting to thank everyone for their love and well wishes during their hard time. She also wants to encourage people to get their hearts checked. So that's kind of where the idea for an event is born, because you know VH1 loves a good event. Cece and Malaysia meet up to go wedding band shopping because, as we know, Cece's engaged, so she has to pick out the ring for her set as well as Byron's engagement ring. Malaysia kind of doesn't waste any time asking, have you and Kristen talk? How is this wedding thing going to work out? Are you guys going to kiss and make up? Malaysia even admits that being that Cece and Kristen were the closest of the bunch, she doesn't even feel right being there sharing in this band shopping experience. While I understand where Malaysia's coming from, I think that all that VH1 is doing is setting up the scene to show how Malaysia is going to be caught in the middle. As everyone says, Malaysia is so big on family. And but how do you fix it? Now, the next scene I find to be a tad bit crazy. Evelyn takes Kristen and Jackie out to meet a shaman because she feels as though Tami has put a hex or something on her, and that's why she's feeling chronic pain. I feel like this is yet another season where Evelyn is going to go into it talking about Tami and breathing life into Tami, while Tami is over here making her coins, loving on her man, and living her life. Things like this is the exact reason why Tami didn't want to be a part of the show. It's also a reason as to why Tami didn't even stay around for Shawnee's love event. Tami popped in for 5 minutes. It was like a bank robbery. She hopped out the car, don't turn the car off, keep it running. I won't be that long. She quote unquote loved on everybody that was there for 5 minutes and she was out. Wasn't willing to get a drink. And I understand at some point you just supersede the drama and it's just not worth it. Jen and Kristen meet up at a cigar lounge and Jen shows up in her glitter Forever 21 sweatsuit. This scene is only important because Jen divulges that she hasn't spoken to anyone since Amsterdam. And Jen is still talking cash shit. Yes, Shaq cheated on Shawnee. We know that. If you were really trying to move forward in these friendships and really become a part of this sister circle, as you say that you want to be, then you would just stop talking about that. That was last season. You reached out to her for Sharif's heart surgery, wishing him well wishes, and then you come on camera running your damn mouth. So she tells Kristen, I don't know why Shawnee's tripping because Shaq wasn't only cheating on her with one person. Everybody knows he was cheating. That's why you're not with him. And of course, Kristen, like a little dog, has to carry that bone at the party. Let's be honest, so many bones were carried at this party. It was not a love party. It was a drama party. How many bones can we carry party? The Christies and Tami and Reggie go on this double date. It's not even significant. The funny part is when she says that they could be the next Jay-Z and Beyonce talking about Tami and Reggie. And Tami promptly laughs and says more like Lucius and Cookie. On to Shawnee's Love and Celebrate Sharif event. Kristen and Shawnee actually are wearing the same dress. And Kristen wastes no time sharing what Jen said to her with Shawnee, which now creates this tension between she and Jen. So much so that when Jen arrives to the party, everyone leaves. Another bone that was carried was Cece was sharing with Evelyn and OG Byron's problems with Kristen, and they could not wait to run over and share that with Kristen. And of course, just like Cece said, no one's going to believe that she's the one that's ready to reconcile. Everyone's going to blame her. No one thinks that Byron is just going to be able to hold this grudge, when in fact, because the cameras have shown it, that's exactly what's happening. This episode left me with 2 questions. Was Kristen being messy by carrying that bone back to Shawnee from Jennifer? And is Evelyn being messy by going back and forth between Kristen and Cece? Also, were the ladies right to leave the event upon Jen's arrival? Was her statement really that big of a deal? And now, last but not least, let's talk Tami Ever After. We already know that Reggie has proposed to Tami once and she accepted, but then she quickly declined. And we never really got a lot of detail in regard to what made her have such a drastic change of heart. We get our answers here. This show just has such a good feel. I find myself smiling throughout the entire episode. The show opens with Tami, Reggie, and her girls chatting in the kitchen. Tami wants to do a Bonnets and Brunch talk show, which I think is right on brand for her because she already does the Bonnet Chronicles. She talks a lot of trash. She's great at gossiping. This opens Tami up to jokes about her cooking. She says she has 10 great recipes. The family says otherwise. They say that she has a max of 5. Somehow this conversation spawns into a conversation about sex. Who are you dating? Well, the first thing that you say when I'm dating someone is that I'm abstinent, I think is what Jazz or the other young lady share. Either way, it just shows how tight they are as a family unit, that they're able to talk about anything. And that, yes, Tami's their mother, but she's also their friend. And it appears that they have that balance there. When Tami exits the room, now it's time to talk about Reggie's desire to get married. He's tired of playing. How many times is he going to have to express this to Tami? How can he get her to understand that he's here for the long haul and he's not going anywhere? This scene is so important because it shows that her girls have truly accepted him and that they actually want to see them together. And they kind of tell him, well, you kind of have to get her to trust you. She's been through a lot, you just have to be a little patient. But I completely understand Reggie's apprehension about not proposing again because he doesn't want to get shot down again. We know that a man's ego just cannot take that. In order to get Tami on board with this whole marriage thing, Reggie enlists his cousins to fly in from Texas and to kind of coax Tami into telling them why she's so apprehensive about marriage. It's funny because Tami's talking about this Bonnets and Brunch as an attempt to get into other people's business. and Reggie is kind of coordinating the same thing in his own special way. So his cousins fly in and they are TV gold. They are so funny. They're country. Although, they do kind of reinforce a few stereotypes, I still find myself smiling and just enjoying the show. They come off as very genuine people, and it's clear that they not only have a love for Reggie, but a love for Tami and their overall happiness. Reggie also shares that although they are cousins, that they grew up in the same house together, and after his mom passed, although they could never replace his mother, they did what they could to kind of step in, help raise him. And so that explains why they're so close, as well as why they're so protective over him. So the family's here and Tami has the whole day planned. First, they do hot yoga, which is hilarious because my friends swear by hot yoga. And I just tell them already, I can do yoga, but not hot yoga. I already don't like being hot. And you start sweating a little bit when you're doing yoga. And then you want to put me in a room where it's hot to do an activity that I already naturally sweat. Nope, not going to do it. It's funny because they keep asking her, ma'am, when is this class over? How long is this class? And the lady just does not reply. But Rotimi shows up, he takes his shirt off and he hops right into the yoga poses. And this is what the lady said they wanted. They said they wanted the Hollywood experience. They want to see the stars. And they were less than 5 feet away from one of the hottest ones. Next up is Botox, which the ladies quickly call some Hollywood shit. They're not quite ready to partake in that part, but it's a funny scene anyway, and they're all a great sport about it. Tami closes out the day with massages on the patio at home. And as the ladies are unwinding, they see this as their opportunity to talk to Tami about her apprehension with marrying Reggie. She kind of divulges that Big Reggie, who's Reggie's father, kind of left a bad taste in her mouth when they first met. He quickly said that he didn't approve. She was too old, she wouldn't be able to give him babies, and she needs to be accepted by his family. Now, while the cousin does a great job of saying, you can't make everybody happy, as long as you make him happy, you have to move forward, and I completely agree. You have to understand Tami's been married before. She's had some of these experiences before, and so some of it is kind of deja vu for her. She clams up all over again. Apparently, Kenny's mom didn't like her before they got married, and so for Reggie's father to not give them his blessing, just for her, I think, kind of curses the marriage before it's even given a fighting chance. While Tami's out talking business with Snoop, he takes his cousin and the daughters out to lunch. They share the information that they got from Tami, and as soon as he hears this information, he is a man about it. He calls his dad, hey, I need you to fly out, we need to talk, and he gets straight to the point. His dad arrives, hey, so good to see you. Tami won't marry me because she needs to feel accepted. First, I need your blessing. Second, I need you to fix it. And his dad agrees. Tami and Big Reggie meet out for lunch because Big Reggie is going to keep up his end of the bargain. They kind of hash things out. This was a little tough to watch because I felt Tami's pain. To be told, you're too old for this person. You're not going to be able to give him babies. And then to attempt to try to give him babies. And in fact, you can't. It has to be hurtful. She even states that it did make her feel like less than a woman. And although Big Reggie tries to tell her that doesn't make you less than a woman, she promptly snaps back and goes, but you're not a woman. You can't tell me how that's going to make me feel. When it's all said and done, they are actually able to let bygones be bygones. Big Reggie makes it clear that he accepts her, he supports her, and I think that takes a huge weight off of Tami's shoulder. Now, at the beginning of the episode, we talked about this bonnets and brunch thing, and Snoop dropped a major gem when they were chatting in the studio, which was, why would you wait for someone else to buy in on your idea when you could just back it yourself? Shoot your own show, get your own producers, get an audience, have your guest stars come in, find your own chef. You can absolutely do this. Don't wait for people to buy in on it. Just do it yourself. And so Tami takes that advice and she runs with it. She's shooting her pilot episode. Tamar Braxton is her first guest. And they talk about how do you move past apprehension or insecurities when you're trying to take that next step in a relationship. And for once, Tamar gives great advice. The advice is to step out of your own way. You are standing in the way of your happiness and the blessings that God wants you to receive. And Tami really does take that to heart. The show ends with a major surprise. Tami opens the floor up to questions from the audience, and Reggie has a question. Or does he? It opens with a very heartfelt comment, paragraph, soliloquy, whatever you want to call it. And then he goes and works his way up to the stage to ask that question. Will you marry me? She says yes. She says that, she can't believe that he did it right then. She can't believe the way that he did it, putting her on the spot, but she's happy that he did it. Behind the scenes, we see that Reggie has the entire thing planned. Okay, girl, you said yes. I'm not going to give you an opportunity to back out. Let's go elope. I have everything planned. I got the flights planned. Trust me. And while Tami literally starts sweating and kind of breaking out in hives, I agree with Reggie. I think that if I had a way or a choice in how I wanted to do it, that's probably how I would do it. Let's go ahead and get this over with. Let's not complicate things. We're already happy with one another. We're in a groove. We live together. Let's just do it. We have forever to have this ceremony, but you better get me while I'm ready to do it right now. She finally agrees to elope, and off to Vegas they go. We see them in the courthouse signing their paperwork, getting their certificate, and they're off to the little white chapel, and we get to see them have this very heartfelt moment of exchanging vows and I love yous and just officially becoming one. It's beautiful. It's cheesy. It's beautiful. It's simple. It's perfect. It's Reggie and Tami. They get back to the house late, of course, because you've flown from LA to Vegas, eloped. You've had a full day. And they get back to the house. They see that there's this kind of like engagement barbecue thing that's been put together. And everyone's like, well, where have y'all been? And I guess because they couldn't come up with a lie on the spot, they just simply said, well, we eloped. Everyone's feelings are hurt. They feel as though they've been robbed of the opportunity to see them, I guess, join in union and at their happiest together. And while I understand people's disappointment, it's also just kind of something that they needed for them. Doesn't mean that you can't see them do the ceremony. And they keep saying it's not going to be the same, but you're all going to cry the same. And we kind of close the episode on a somber note, seeing how they've completely deflated Tami and Reggie's excitement over their elopement. I loved this episode because it really shows Tami in a different light. It shows how she's evolved. We saw her on The Real World, and we've seen her be this angry woman on Basketball Wives and just this persona that she's had her entire career. This time, we really get to see the softer side of Tami. And that wraps up this week's recap. And if you like this episode, you already know what to do. Not only hit like, but make sure to subscribe. And while you're at it, go ahead and head on over to Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter and follow me there because you never want to miss the conversation. I can't wait to chat with you next week. Bye. This video has been Quinnie B approved. Thanks for watching. But don't stop there. Let's head on over to Instagram and Twitter and keep the conversation going. I'll meet you there. Bye-bye.